So we are ready at any time.
Okay, welcome to the February 1st, 2023 Milford Planning and Zoning POCD Subcommittee. We're ready to go, and Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. Mr. Cassignoli,
Here.
Mr. Cater,
Present.
Mr. Mortimer,
Present.
Chairman Quish.
I'm here. And we have David, Meg, and Adam with us. Would you scroll the agenda, please, David?
Yes, I'm having a fight with my camera, but okay, I'm done with
I
that.
think the next order of business is just handing it off to Adam to walk us through the work that they've done.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I just want to silence. Here. Sorry, just trying to work and let me get the PowerPoint up. And oh, did that come up on the shared screen?
Yes,
Oh, terrific.
and we are going back to page 33. So we are starting with the housing. Keep going. I think there's where we're at. Great. So thank you everybody for a really productive call last time. I think this is a really great format for us to kind of continue getting input and feedback. So we're going to follow the same format, which is to kind of move through this in a sort of slide by slide. I'm going to be taking notes on my side. And it's sort of a open discussion, and we'll try to kind of keep moving things along and hopefully get through all of this today. So with housing, we've got 2 topics here. So if we go to the next one, the goal is about density close to transit, and the recommendation is Milford should promote using mass transit more and encourage living in these areas where mass transit is available. Any concerns, issues, or things to adjust here?
I think we might, if there's a list of recommendations for zoning regulation changes, we could say maybe like encourage changes in zoning to allow, say, more dense development. Maybe you go up higher in certain areas near transit. And it could be on a list that we have, a separate list as included in the POCD, that is a list of recommended items for consideration for change.
Okay, yeah, and that is the next. So the next topic here, I think, is density close to transit is multifamily usually should be specifically targeted for mixed-use commercial zones along Route 1 and within the downtown MCDD or the SFA and RMF zones. This was I believe, a comment that somebody included. Does this feel like accurate?
I would have to be,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think I'd have to be refreshed on SFA and RMF zone.
I was just going to ask what they were.
Yeah, that we don't have many of those. The SFA stands for a single family attached. So I've got to remember the name of the street between West Main Street and Golden Hill, behind Laurelton Hall. That the street that connects those 2 points. That's a lot of that street is an SFA.
Yeah, I think we did have something across the street at a corner there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the design districts either can be included or just not excluded. So if we don't actually target a zone, then we're not limiting to a particular zone.
Right.
It could be like a citywide target. I mean, I don't know what other people think of that. I don't know.
When you say citywide target, are you saying that all zones should be made?
No, I
Okay.
just don't know that we want to list every single one, or we're
Oh,
gonna
right,
make the
right.
right
So,
choice.
yeah, so,
We just want to leave it open to future interpretation.
so if you say corridor, well, we have, the corridor districts cover the entire town, in thin swaths, but, because Route 1 are different corridor districts, and New Haven Avenue and Bridgeport Avenue. Those are all corridor districts of one kind or another.
Yeah, I think commercial zones encompasses it. We should have mixed multifamily housing and commercial zones, I think. Maybe that would be all we need.
Yep.
Is there a downside to that? I like that. Is there a downside to that, David?
In my opinion, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, you have the infrastructure that could handle the density. You want the ability in the best circumstances to have housing near amenities. So, just like if, downtown is the best example of, gee, you could live downtown and you could walk to restaurants. To be able to do that, in the commercial corridors would be a good thing as well. And some of those commercial corridors have some housing, although the regulations really limit the density. And and unless you're really looking for it, you won't see it. There's a handful of plazas along the Boston Post Road that have housing above the stores. But again, you wouldn't know they were there unless you were looking.
Okay.
But an earlier discussion that the committee had was for the CDD3, which prohibits housing. And that's probably a ripe corridor to allow it.
Okay,
So
so maybe
maybe
the
we do that.
recommendation here is to permit multifamily housing in commercial zones, especially near transit nodes, or especially within maybe walking distance of a transit node. And then, to identify densities and building typologies that would support those recommendations. Does that feel appropriate?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Sounds good
Yes.
to me.
And I
Yeah.
think a note, if we're gonna put a list of potential changes, we have CDD3 that prohibits housing, that we might want to take a look at that to
Okay.
include it in the broader vision.
And that's CD3.
Yep.
CDD3.
It's housing should be re-examined. Great. So the next one on this, if we go to the next one, David,
Oh, sorry.
no worries, is about preserving residential neighborhoods, and is about eliminating rear lot development or increasing the size of rear lots from the 1 acre requirement.
Eliminate rear lot development from what, garage?
Now, this is targeting rear lots like flag lots. That's so you can have a lot, and we haven't seen many of these recently, but you could own a large piece of property and say it's a double deep lot, in any zone. And as long as you can get a 25-foot right of way carved out of the lot that's on the street going to the back, as long as you have an acre in the back, you can develop that lot.
I
And
see.
that's for any zone. So the board had talked about at one time, should you get rid of rear lots? Should you make the requirement bigger? I mean, because that's going to affect the density of any particular neighborhood where you have the ability to do these. So it's really a policy question of, do you want to enable more density by changing that 1 acre requirement in the back? Or do you want to make it more difficult to preserve green space, and not allow, development, or get rid of allowing rear lots, period? I mean, again, that was one of the things that had been discussed. That was a while ago that was discussed. And I don't know that, and I'm trying to remember, Jim, do you remember, was it the regulation subcommittee, or was it this committee that we're sort of talking about it? And I don't really think anything, and I don't think there was any recommendation to change anything.
Yeah, there was a discussion. It was probably on this. Actually, I don't remember, but there was discussion. I mean, if we, there's not I don't think there's a ton. If you had to throw a dart, are there 50 spots that could have a 1 acre zone? I mean, not most of the R5s and R10s will definitely not have an acre behind them.
Right.
Some maybe, but not many.
Yeah, it's not as big of a deal the closer you get to the shoreline. It's a bigger deal when you head north of 95, because that's where we have the 1 acre lots, and you have a greater potential to do that. And I think right now one of the limiting factors is, depending on where you are in the north, is the lack of sewers. So I think that right now is sort of tempering that, but that may change.
I don't see a need to include it if anyone else doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, the current regulation has been, as far as I know, working
Okay.
fine.
So let's take this out. It doesn't seem like, it seems like a sort of holdover that was examined and hasn't caused any particular issues, so we can move this. So the next one is the zoning and subdivision regulations should be amended to exclude from all land area calculations all wetlands, watercourses, and steep slopes.
What, vis-a-vis taxes, or?
Now,
No, this is probably minimum lot standards and meeting those requirements, so.
yeah, so if you had a 1 acre lot, Jim, or John, and 10,000 square feet of that lot, were wetlands or water courses, or you wanted to create a new lot that had that, you wouldn't be able to use that you wouldn't be able to use those things that you're excluding as
Okay.
part of the calculation.
That sounds.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm a little concerned here, and then it's that watercourse. If you have a stream, and these streams are creeks or brooks, they're a couple of feet wide, and I don't think it's egregious. I think wetlands might, but so, and steep slopes, I think, is a slippery slope, because you don't define what a steep slope is. I mean, I think that, I'm not in favor of this personally. The zoning regulation as it is, the subdivision requirements allow for the calculation to include wetlands, but there's building requirements that don't permit filling, and they don't permit building within a certain distance. So I think we're pretty well protected personally.
Well, Jim, I am in favor of this, okay?
Okay.
Because I live in a development that was basically built on wetlands, okay? There are a couple of people around me, a few people around me that had to put in engineered septics, okay? Because their septic systems wouldn't work, so they had to put in engineered septics, okay? And if the wetlands were excluded, they couldn't have gotten away with a 1 acre zone here, okay? So I think that these should be excluded, okay? You shouldn't be able to include water courses, wetlands, and basically property that cannot be built upon or used in the size of a lot.
And I can further add to that the way right now if you were to keep this in, if we didn't do anything with this, the way to keep the density, and maybe it's the same situation that has affected Joe, is someone could apply for a cluster subdivision. So if you're still including the wetlands, the watercourses, and steep slopes, and strictly speaking, you could get 10 lots out of it, including those things. Yet really, if you weren't including those, you can only build 5.
Right.
Under the cluster regulations, you could still build that 10 and just squeeze
Right.
them all together.
And that's what the guy did who developed my neighborhood. Okay. He built this little neighborhood and basically he got 1 acre lots when he should have only gotten maybe 1, 2, 3 lots, and he got 5. Okay, by including the wetlands, and there's a river that runs under my street that runs up through one of the properties that I'm sure was included. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this also.
Okay.
But, you know, again, there's no force of law behind this. It's just,
Yeah, it would be, you would have to change your zoning regulations.
yeah, which maybe we should
Yeah.
take up, but, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I won't stick my heels in the sand over that.
Great. So let's keep moving. So the next one here is about for newly created lots in the CDD and MCDD zones. Both this zoning and subdivision regulation should be amended to exclude land from all calculations, wetlands, watercourses. This is the same
Same thing.
idea, but for a different zone. I think we can just make this for all zones.
Yeah.
I agree.
Great. All right. So the next one is just says to preserve single family residential neighborhood densities, particularly in the more rural RA zones, by more stringent zoning regulation changes if necessary. I don't really know what this is recommending because it says to preserve the existing densities, but create more stringent zoning regulations. And I'm curious if you all understand what was the intent behind that.
I don't see a clear target. And I think, I think if you're calling for a zone change, which is again, what will create some kind of a list, but outside of that, I think if there's not seems like an immediate need that either the board or an individual would come forth and try to get something changed. I don't know, it's an acre zoning right there. So that's as large a zoning requirement that we have in the city. Is that accurate for
Well,
residential, David?
Dave, let me ask you a question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the RA is the largest zone. It's the 1 acre zone. The only thing that comes to mind is the only thing that could affect the density, it would be those rear lots, because you'd be able to develop the rear lots without meeting the lot requirements for width and depth that you would normally have in a lot. So to me, that's the only thing that you could really do to make it more stringent, because I mean, we don't have anyone breaking down our doors to change the RA lots. Everyone, I mean, it's a single family zone. So the only thing to really affect that would be if you wanted to make it more stringent, you get rid of the rear lots. So that way, all the lots would be all on the street. Everyone would be on the street instead of tucked away.
It almost sounds like it was put there to calm down some residents who are worried about density in their neighborhood.
Well, yeah, but you can always go for a zone change, right, Dave? Where you can substitute, like up near me, where the Great River guys, they said, okay, the golf course counts as open space. And instead of that, that'll make up for the 1 acre that we're not, since we're putting the houses on 1/3 of an acre.
So that was, we got rid of those rules. So that was, and that, I think that was the straw that broke I'm not sure if it was that or the other complex, but
Right.
whose name is.
We don't
Steve
have
Smith.
cluster zoning anymore.
No, we still have cluster, but we used to have a planned development districts. In a planned development district, you could basically write your own regulations over on an area of a minimal size, so you'd have to have, 20 acres or 30, whatever it was. And
So
Yeah.
David, so I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to keep moving. We got a lot of slides to go through. I apologize. So let's go to the next one here really quickly, because it sounds like this sounds like the same conversation that we've been having about the rear zone, so we can continue kind of moving past this. So the next section is on historic preservation. If we go to the next slide, there is this Simon's Lake submarine prototype is still sort of stuck in the marsh. Should it be preserved? Is there direction on something that needs to happen?
Yeah, I don't think it has a place in the POCD,
Right.
whatever, like, you do whatever you want.
Yeah, let's remove that.
Okay. So commercial corridors, this is probably the most robust section in your zoning ordinance or in your POCD right now. So I want to kind of get into some of this. Some of this, I will say we're going to need to sort of reorganize a little bit because it's sort of spread out across different areas, but in the streetscape mobility part, requiring bicycle parking facilities and electric car charging stations as part of the site plan review process.
Yeah, we've been doing that informally without regulation for the bike part. And the car charging, we just passed a regulation for it because state statute requires parking lots of a certain size and developments of a certain size to have it. So.
Okay.
And
So maybe just
I think that some of this
formalizing the bike
could be all
parking.
combined into whatever the sustainability piece is. We have, a lot of headings, but we have a lot of stuff that's going to overlap. So maybe as you see things that ring a bell, we can sort of keep them in. They don't have to be in 3 different spots.
Yep, I agree with that. So the next one is to provide streetscape improvements and find gateways into Milford Center and downtown.
I think they've been doing that. Since this plan was done, they did a whole bunch of signage and they've done, a lot of sidewalk work.
So we can remove this because
I
it's really already been done.
I think so.
I mean, it's a good idea. I think,
Yeah.
I think we're maybe talking about a more robust narrative at the beginning, that a lot of these things can be put in as part of a mission statement as opposed to as a A1, B2, 3C. So I think that's important. It could be part of a mission statement.
Yep, that's very helpful. So this is about providing signage and streetscape improvements in the transition areas along Bridgeport Avenue and New Haven Avenue.
That's the same
along
thing,
Cherry
isn't it?
Street.
Yeah, I mean, the city did put in wayfinding signage that they didn't have when this plan was done last time. So if, they mean streetscape improvements as being signage, I mean, the city has done that. Could it, as Jim would say, could it be more robust? I'm sure it could. But we
Well, I
have,
mean, I think it's important, and I don't think it needs to be, I don't think you have to identify names of streets or areas, but again, the mission statement is to somehow identify, wayfinding, obviously, and by celebrating the unique and special parts of Milford through good, strong wayfinding could be part of the mission statement.
Yep. Great.
Okay.
So this is about encouraging building carports with solar panels that have EV charging. Is this sort of covered under we've already done the EV ordinance?
Yeah, I think that this is, we do have a little bit of empowerment from the state, and we're not really sure how how strong it actually is, but I would put this as a recommendation for the regulation subcommittee to investigate somehow, adding this language into special exceptions or special permits or something to give this. I'd like to see it happen, so I would put it in that list of recommendations for the ordinance, the regulation subcommittee to look at.
Yeah, I agree.
So this
Great.
one. So this Devon Central one, the city's actually done this. They've created parking lots in Devon. On a route one that's shared for businesses to use. So,
We can take this out.
yeah,
Okay, so what about these recommendations on Naugatuck Avenue?
unify the court, improve streets. The city has actually done some streetscape improvements along Naugatuck Avenue, south of Route 1. They've done period, light posts and sidewalks. And then when you get that farther down Naugatuck Avenue toward the water at the other end, there's a lot of streetscape improvements and restriping and reparking, rejiggering the parking down there.
Yeah, they did a great job for.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, down by Walnut Beach. I do think that there is a problem between say Milford Point Road and Simon Lake School, or around that like 1 mile where we have, I think we had some developments where there were requirements for a used car lot, and they were allowed a certain number of cars, and I think they probably have 3 to 4 times as many. We have some parking of, repair vehicles. I don't know if it has a place here, probably not, but I would say continue, if you have a mission statement per CDD or just for one, but just to encourage,
Yeah,
I'm not even sure how to say it, but
yeah, I think we get that. So if we go back, it sounds like there is still some design standards to make sure that infill is keeping sort of with the quality of the character along this.
Yeah, I saw the
and
word
then that's-
murals in there. I love murals, by the way, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if it belongs in there, but
yeah.
that's a good idea.
The challenge with our corridor design districts, all of them is, they were cobbled together from various other zones. And, Naugatuck Avenue is a great example of that because you do have grittier land uses that were historically there. And, the hope obviously over time is, that they'll disappear. And we do.
Yeah.
And we do have enforcement issues, which, we periodically have to inform the several automotive uses down there that spill over their property lines to clean up.
Yep. Great.
Yeah, that's it.
Um,
okay.
Walnut Beach, improve the pedestrian link between the commercial zones and the public beach to the north.
Yeah, and again, the city, since the last plan, has redone the parking lot down there. We now have the state boardwalk that's down there. And again, all of the public access from Naugatuck Avenue and is it Broadway or East Broadway? I think you can get access.
Broadway.
Yeah, I think that's accomplished.
Yeah.
We've got that done.
Great. So is this also done to reconfigure East Broadway?
It's not East Broadway. It's there would be West Broadway. Or nobody, it's just Broadway.
Broadway.
Yeah, Walnut Beach, over by Silver Beach is East Broadway.
Yeah, the physical stuff has been done. There was part of the last plan. There was a design exercise to take Broadway, which is rather wide, and narrow it and perhaps expand some developable lots on the sides. And the city hasn't done that.
Okay. Is there still any interest in pursuing this, or is this something that sort of was examined and never really
I think-
materialized?
I think people liked it, but for the stretch between Naugatuck and where the entrance to the parking lot is for the city, which is basically that whole street front. Other than the parking lot, it's like one property owner, I believe, on the water. It's a condominium. And, you know, they're not gonna be developing anything.
You know, the thing is, when they did the parking there, they didn't add in a bike lane. That would be a great spot to have a bike lane, because then you can ride from the Audubon all the way up to Silver Sands. You know, you can ride bikes on that.
Yeah.
On the old dump
Sure.
road. So,
But
I mean,
I
I would-
often do that, and there's enough room on that. They really made the sidewalks wide. So, where the
Yeah.
parking is. That's one of my regular routes, and it can be done, although on Broadway, as it gets past the Lazy Lobster and all that, it's, yeah.
That's
there's
pretty
no
tough.
It's
parking.
narrow. It's narrow.
Okay, so it's more about sort of increasing non-motorized mobility, access along here, bicycle support, and formalizing that a little bit.
Yeah.
That is helpful. So the next one in Walnut Beach is sort of encouraging small scale commercial enterprises, restaurants, boutiques, galleries. Jim, I think this is a little bit more sort of a vision kind of document. There's no real recommendation here.
Yeah, and it's been ongoing for a long time. So but it's more of a part of a mission statement. I think you're right.
Okay,
Yeah, and
Same thing.
yeah, same thing. The artist colony.
okay.
The public beach at the end of Naugatuck Avenue. Catch, is it actually public at the end of Naugatuck, or does it belong to
Yeah,
the?
no, it is public. Yep.
Okay, the access, okay. Again, another vision.
Okay.
Great idea.
Should bring back the amusement park.
So this is again more vision language rather than specific recommendations for what needs to be done there. I think a lot of these there's one more Walnut Beach one here, which is it's, I think, one more past this. Yeah. Streetscape improvements.
They've done this.
Okay,
They've done this.
great. So the next one is the Bridgeport Avenue corridor.
I would just go back for 1 second. I'm sorry, Adam, but
Yep.
there is, and I think it's covered somewhere else. It could be in wayfinding, or it could be in beach access. But if you go, you talk about Walnut Beach, there's also the West Shore, which would be from the Naugatuck Avenue all the way down to the Bird Sanctuary, Audubon Society. Is that there's maybe 7 or 8 street and public beaches that should be identified, and that should be a part of the communication piece and part of wayfinding. Thank you.
Yep.
So this Bridgeport Avenue corridor is the CDD3 that we talked about earlier. So this is the.
From Stop and Shop to Milford Hospital.
Yep. And it's it's wide, it's underutilized, it's got a mixture of things there, and
Okay,
yeah.
Some oil in the soil.
And on a particular property, I think they'd be happy to have just oil in the soil.
yeah, so but this is sort of continuing with design standards
Yeah.
there. This is sort of coming back to this multifamily mixed use in the Boston Post Road, which I think is the next one.
Yeah.
This is really sort of a vision language. Are we comfortable with this as sort of the direction where things should be?
I mean, I think that it's, specific to Cherry Street, and I think that it's probably some language can really speak to all the districts, right? So if we want to look at getting some more of housing and affordable housing and keep some consistent design standards, we can allow developers to go up a little bit, get a little bit more density, and then have a little bit of money to spend on design features and amenities. And so I think there could be a balance between, the needs of the developer and the desires of the town.
Maybe you
And that's
could go on
good.
the
You're sort
mission
of saying that
statement.
across all of the design districts, all of the business districts?
I think so.
Looks like something that could maybe go in the mission statement, the complete streets emphasis. I don't know.
Yeah, and Cherry Street was specifically named because it acts almost as an extension of downtown. It obviously has a totally different feel, and but the thinking behind this was, well, gee, if the shopping centers that are on Cherry Street were reversed with the building up closer to the street and the parking behind, that would provide a much nicer streetscape.
Got it. So it's sort of about
Yeah,
how
it's
to
just-
sort of get this to evolve over time to not maybe be exactly like downtown, but sort of be a transition.
Right.
Well, Cherry Street does have a lot of property that is probably built between the 1880s and the 1940s. So those are the front streets with lawyers and doctors and accountants, and then
Got it.
some larger buildings behind. But there is that one property that is the old King's.
We'll call it the old shop, right?
You don't remember King's?
I remember Kings. I
I
don't
remember
remember.
Kings.
I remember. Well, I grew up in a different area. I remember the Kings down near me where I grew up, but
There was more than one. Oh my God.
there was one.
I
Yeah,
thought there was only one.
that was one in New Haven on the boulevard.
Wow.
So this is another Cherry Street, talking about bicycle and pedestrian improvements along here. Are we so comfortable with this as a recommendation?
Sure, because it should be done. It's still a work in progress in that street.
Great. So this, I think, is another, sort of discussion of the larger conversation around that we were having here about sort of location and form of the buildings. And can be sort of more about a vision statement than a specific recommendation or tied to what the design standard should focus on. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, I know exactly what the delineation of the Post Road Western Corridor is. Is that from Big Y to the Devon Bridge?
Well, yeah, so
Do you know, David, where the,
see, I wouldn't see, I would call everything here is named Western. I would actually call Eastern because it's, well, or the middle, because yeah, I mean, the Post Road technically runs from basically the Stop and Shop down, at the split, by Subaru to the Orange Line.
Oh,
So-
yeah, so that would be Eastern.
Yeah.
That's if we know east, west, south, and north.
Yeah.
Um,
So this would be definitely west of Orange.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you could probably just say that, Route 1 Post Road could have, obviously a whole bunch of it's already developed into car lots, but, some car lots sell one place and buy another one. And then if they're going to be redeveloped, then this should be across the entire Post Road.
okay,
And same thing you were just talking about.
yeah.
Yep. And instead of separate headings, obviously, this is one of those things that can be combined together, right?
Okay. All right. This is again, it sounds like a vision and consistent with what we've been talking about. So then the last one of the commercial corridors is the New Haven Commercial Corridor. And these are the two recommendations that were called out there.
So this is this you're thinking of from
downtown, from the Stone Bridge,
all the way to West Haven?
all the way to, well, probably not all the way to it, well. It would be the CDD4 zone, so it'd be as
So
far
all
as,
the way to Pond Point Ave, maybe.
yeah, yeah. Old Gate Lane, Pond Point up there, yep.
Hmm. They seem to be kind of in opposition to each other there.
The oxymoron.
Yeah,
Lots of development, but don't touch the water.
that's right.
I mean, I think we're probably protected with the inland wetlands and just basic building requirements for the water, but
Yeah, probably, yeah. And
So
that's
it should be more about focusing on sort of the protection and maybe not a higher density housing in this area. Is that
well, it's
fair to say?
a commercial corridor, and we already emphasized the fact that we
Yeah,
want to have
mixed use.
use housing there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
So
so
both-
we could probably just remove this section particular without getting into much.
Yeah,
Okay. So we're moving along nicely. Thank you. So this is about public infrastructure and buildings. The first one is about extending water service and providing new hydrants where new development is proposed.
yeah, we shouldn't have this in here because that's like saying, gee, we should run electric lines. I mean,
Right,
it's,
right.
Okay.
Indoor plumbing, it's a must.
yeah, indoor plumbing's a must.
All right. So this was a recommendation to examine the expansion of the city's wastewater treatment facility. Is
This,
that still needed?
not by us, the city has been upgrading their plants over the last 10 years and doing what they need to, because DEP, requires them to, so.
Now, at one point, if we have an infrastructure piece in the POCD that allows this board or future boards to look at a planned development and have a place to hang the hat to get proof that there is sufficient wastewater treatment, sufficient water. I know we had one up on Big Drive, and there was a lot of complaints that there wasn't enough water pressure for the existing infrastructure. The infrastructure didn't have enough water pressure for existing properties, never mind, another 250 units or whatever. So if there's a place that we can, as a board or the future board, can say, well, hey, by the way, we are empowered by the POCD to take into consideration both public water and public sewer in our decision-making, that it might be valuable.
It's,
Yeah, I think that can be something that we can talk about maybe more in, setting a requirement that applicants submit that information.
Okay.
Right. So the next one is focus on recycling and, continuing to increase recycling and to reduce tonnage and waste.
yeah, I mean, the city, I think, does that. I mean, they've made changes to their waste collection programs and, I mean, it's a statewide issue. I mean,
Yeah.
there's talk of the legislature mandating some things this session, so.
So can we,
Okay.
So if we have a public, if we have a subdivision, not like there's gonna be many left, but if we have like a 50 house subdivision and the roads are gonna be private. And can we mandate at that point a recycling plan and policy for that development at this point?
I don't think we can, because, you know, if it's a private street, they can do what they want, versus if it was a public street, they would be getting city services.
Right. But if we made it a requirement of their approval,
Let me put, okay, I'll put it a different way. I don't have a mechanism to enforce it. There's nothing in the statutes that planning and zoning can do to enforce garbage collection or how someone gets rid of their waste.
Yeah, I think you're right, David. I mean, what I'm hearing though from Jim is that, you know, this is one of those things that you can essentially ask them to show without having any teeth behind it, so that you could, you know, you can require that they demonstrate, you know, or explain how they will manage recycling and contribute to, you know, the community's overall goal of reducing waste. You can't approve or deny the application based on that, but in requiring them to show that, it sort of, you know, gives them the hint that, hey, if they want anything else, they've got to meet that basic requirement. So we could certainly include something along that lines.
okay, great.
I think that's also something to maybe look more into the sustainability section than in this public infrastructure section.
I think that makes sense. I think that's going to be part of a fairly difficult task for you to weave the fabric in a way that is intuitive and is easy to access for the public.
Yeah, and I think this one's another great example of this. I think this is less about public infrastructure and should be more in the mobility and bicycle infrastructure section. And I think this talks a little bit more to the complete streets and that conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does to me.
Great. So this is about green infrastructure and retrofitting some developed areas to address pervious surfaces and natural groundwater reabsorption.
Well,
Great idea.
we cut.
I don't think you can take curbs away and just let water flow into the street.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the logic behind that is, but I'm sure there's something.
Yeah,
I don't think you could. I don't think you could do that when you require builders, developers, and everybody who's developing property to put in sidewalks with curbs.
That's right. And then don't allow
Okay.
curbs.
And then you tell property owners, well, you got to get rid of the curbs.
Yes,
Yeah.
and actually the state requires, and this is why, you know, all of our development plans that come before the board end up getting reviewed by the city engineer. The regulations, the state requires that any impervious area that becomes impervious in a development has to store and reabsorb the water on site. So that's why we have all these underground infiltrators and everything. So it's a built solution versus, you know, a free for all, letting the water just go elsewhere.
Okay.
So we can take this out.
Yep.
That is helpful. And then so this is about just sort of reducing the fare to the beaches and
Isn't it free for Milford residents?
Yeah, if you have a beach pass, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can walk on it, you just can't park.
Right.
Right.
They don't handcuff you for a walk on the beach. But
Okay.
the parking is, so there is no fee to go to the beach. There's fees to park I think you get a year pass, and I think if you're out of city or out of state, there's a more expensive fee to pay.
Okay, so let's remove that one from the list.
Right.
Oh, but
From,
was that a transportation piece? Was that saying like
Um,
for Milford Transit to have
Yeah, I think
Reduced
you
fares.
misunderstood it, Jim.
to the beach?
That is correct. That's what it's saying.
To the
Yeah.
beach.
Oh, to the beach. Oh, okay.
Okay, so maybe when we get to transportation, we can put that in. I think it's worthy of consideration,
okay,
but it's in
Hmm.
the transportation, public transportation piece.
okay. So that's convenient because we're moving into the transportation and circulation section. So we're moving along here. This is about expanding the sidewalk network. One of the things that the existing POCD sort of has is a priority sidewalk expansion network map. Is this still something to
Yeah.
advance? And focus on?
It probably is because the city has been building and rebuilding sidewalks. I don't want to
Okay.
say like crazy, but with vigor over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think we used to have the developers would pay a fee instead of open space, and that fee would be a sidewalk fund, but I think that disappeared maybe 25 years ago. But I think it would be a good thing to bring back and promote.
Okay,
Walkability is
Mhm.
a good thing.
Yeah, the city's been making people do the sidewalks. And we didn't have, the fund disappeared because the city didn't have the legal authority to do that.
got it.
Yeah.
So, this is more of a, sort of direction to review and schedule local roadway improvements and implement bike and pedestrian infrastructure where capacity is available. Sounds like this is already sort of being done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're obviously pointing the laser at walking and bike friendly, so, and obviously we don't tell the Department of
Public Works.
Public Works where and when to pave and
Yeah.
repave a road, so.
So this is just about education outreach to, promote bicycle and infrastructure, new bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and rules for sharing the road.
And I think this is a bigger part of a bigger piece of public engagement is with the wayfinding, with the identifying where the beaches are, we're identifying potentially, inexpensive bus fare, just as part of a community outreach or community engagement piece in a mission statement to make sure that whatever amenities and things we have are noted and shared as well as we can do it.
I mean, but this could also be, a program to, improve education and wayfinding throughout, the community that focuses on, wayfinding, highlighting beach access locations, what are the affordable and ways of moving around the community. That's certainly something that could be done. So this is a sort of direction about Milford Transit buses and their transition to electric vehicles and better promoting transit in Milford. It sounds like that second bullet is what we were previously talking about.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that the POCD is the right place for this, but if you've ever seen a Milford Transit bus go by that holds about 60 or 70 people with more than 2 or 3 in it,
Yeah.
I'd say that would be noteworthy. So I think right sizing that is maybe more of a political
Yep.
mission rather than the POCD, but
Well, I mean, I think it is part of this sort of transportation and circulation framework, so we can certainly leave it in there for now. The complete street, so one of the things that sort of happens in here is the conversation about schools gets sort of intertwined into a lot of different areas. So this is one about sort of coordinating with the schools to identify additional pedestrian and bike infrastructure needs. There is a program out there called Safe Routes to Schools, which basically you can do this, and you can get funding for the planning and the implementation of this, but it's not sort of specifically called out in this bullet.
Maybe we should. That sounds
I
like.
think, I think the city is doing that. I think the city and the Board of Ed, that sounds very familiar. I want to say they may be doing that.
Okay. So we can keep moving on that. This is just a recommendation on complete streets, which it sounds like from this conversation, you are all supportive of, and we need to just roll into.
Well, yeah, I think we've seen it like 3 or 4 times, so it's worthy of at least one
Yeah.
focus point as opposed to 3 or 4 different ones, you know, just in general, with the sidewalk, with the complete streets, with the safety
Yeah.
in mind, something that can sort of encompass everything that's been brought up in that space into one thing, one.
So I want to kind of just then roll all of these into that. So this next one, provide a complete street network on feeder streets, which provide both north, south, and east, west connections. You know, this is sort of more of a vision direction on what the transportation network should look like. The next one, the complete streets ordinance and design guide, I think is a good recommendation if that is something that you're interested in pursuing. A lot of communities are doing this, and there's funding for it.
Sounds like a good
Yeah.
cause.
Yep, so that would be really the board, the alders, maybe at our request.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, and I'm gonna say, I think community development has been working on that.
Okay.
So I
Well, we
took,
should I mean, I don't mind, with the whole concept of complete streets, I don't mind underpinning it
oh, absolutely.
as it relates to the POCD, saying that, and
agree.
this is consistent with the POCD. And
I agree.
that'll help get support for the alders.
Okay. So the next one is to update sidewalk ordinance to require connectivity. It sounds like you are already sort of requiring property owners to
Yeah.
do this. Okay, so we can remove this. And then I wasn't clear on this. What the direction is David, do you have any insights on this?
No, only because, you know, when a developer does a development, you know, they're meeting our requirements, and that's what we have to hold them to.
Right.
So, you know, anything they want to do above and beyond that, I mean, they can. But, you know, when, so I'm not quite sure.
Well, I think
Okay.
it may be an important education piece for this board and for future boards, that a lot of times we say, go ahead and do this, and if the city requires you to put in a sidewalk, fine. If not, just give them some money and fine, you know, so we leave it up to the Director of Public Works, where maybe if we are educated and future boards are educated, that we do have a choice to impose that it may be smart to comply with a larger complete streets vision by requiring.
Mhm.
So we are now on to sustainability, and quite frankly, most of the recommendations in sustainability are about a lot of this bicycle pedestrian work. And I think based on the conversation that we've had here, it's now 8 o'clock. And so I want to be just conscientious of time. I think
We did
I think
carve
we
out
could-
an hour and a half, Adam, for tonight, if everybody wants to stay. But that was the plan, to let us go a little longer. I don't know what your schedule is or anyone else's schedule, but I'm okay to
Yeah.
have it.
what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that there was time to talk about, you had requested that we carve out some time at the end to talk about the timeline
Yeah.
and the public. So I think that there's enough, I think I've got enough information about these following slides. Based on our conversation, I don't think there's anything in here that is
Controversial.
controversial outside of, or that we haven't already covered, that isn't sort of part of the conversation we've had to date. And I'd rather spend the time talking a little bit more about David's timeline and making sure that we have time to discuss that.
Okay, that's fine. I would just ask one thing is to either in sustainability, or if we have, maybe all multiple mission statements and instead of just one grand one, but like at least in a sustainability, there, again, there's a little bit of teeth in recent state regulations. And I think some language to onboard and keep current information in front of the members of the board to identify changes in laws like that, or their subsequent interpretations, because I don't think we have a full interpretation yet, but I think we actually can require somebody to put solar on the roof. I think there is legitimate state regulations that underpin that, and I don't know how far that goes, and we've not been schooled on it yet, but and it might change, and there might be new legislation coming up, and I just think that that's an important thing to underpin on the POCD. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful, Jim. And I think maybe the way to talk about that is to put in a recommendation to do really a sustainability plan that would be able to dig into that in a little bit more depth and in a level that we're not going to be able to do as part of the POCD. And that would give you a sort of framework. There are plenty of communities that have done that. And that could inform some of the land use decisions, but also could, provide additional direction to the governing body about how best to, implement other ordinances. How do you
Great.
all feel about something like that?
I like it. I would talk to you offline and come up with some kind of maybe a plan to present something to the Board of Aldermen who have the purse strings.
Right. Right. And
I
what we
think
could
we're all
do
in
is
favor of
sort of,
sustainability, so I'm definitely on board.
yeah, we could outline some of the elements that a sustainability plan might address.
Yeah, and a lot of them
Um,
could actually be cost savings for the city, for
Yeah,
sure.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Great. So David, do you want to kind of walk through the,
Sure. I know it's a little on the aggressive side, but the general thinking I had, and again, this is just, for discussion, is we know that we're going to have a written draft of the plan by the end of February. Correct, Adam?
yes,
Okay. So we have that document in hand. Then that gets us over to what we could do a couple of different things. I mean, once we have the actual document, that document could be brought to the whole board, and then public hearings could be put together for various sections for the thing in general, for specific areas of interest, depending on how board members feel about what's in the plan. And
So not to interrupt, but I would come to the board first and then we would have public meetings.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, all meetings are public, but what I'm saying is, the document goes to the board sort of looks at it and maybe gives some feedback. The board may reserve its feedback and just go, hey, why don't we have a general public meeting on it and see what people think about it? And then from there, we could schedule specific meetings if there is a particular area that, people want to talk about. So you could have, a handful of meetings. I mean, you would have, at the very least, for the full For the full plan, you'd have probably a couple of meetings. And then if there are specific other meetings that you'd have, we could do that. And, you could have, and they could be special meetings that could be held during the month, say the board could continue to do its regular business and then have a couple of special meetings, in March and in April. And then, would we be able to actually get it to the Board of Aldermen in April? Probably not. But that, so this square here might get knocked over, but to have public meetings to sort of vet it and make changes, could occur in March and April. And then after that, it then would get sent out to SCROG and the Board of Aldermen. And, ultimately, heading for approval. Because, I mean, this group has done an awful lot of work, and we're going to have a document based on all these years of work. And because the document itself, this group had concurred and said, it just needs some updating here and there, but it's generally a good document. It would be, I think, great to get it out to the public and the full board and see what people think. And if adjustments have to be made, we make those adjustments and, move it forward.
Yeah, I think personally, I think that we should look to let M go out a couple months and really look for R to be at the end of October. And give things a little bit more time in between.
Well, but I mean, I'm obviously you could do whatever it is you'd like to do. Until we get the document in our hands, and until the public and the full board sees it, I think it's hard to gauge the amount of time after that you're going to really need. I mean, based on the two other plans I was involved with here, before this, there wasn't an awful lot of time that was really needed. I mean,
I think there's a public, I think the public is more interested, and I think once we see the draft, that we will maybe carve out a couple, like a section or two, and have a public input session on that. And then, so I think there'll be several public input sessions, and I just don't think that between regulations, POCD, general meetings, there's going to be bandwidth for everything to finish up at the end of June. So in general, I think that we're going to need a little bit of time to digest the draft. Then we're going to have to schedule, get it in front of one of the two meetings in March or April for the board. And if there's a little bit of input that they want to do without the public, then we have to carve out time for them. I just think I like to over deliver and under promise. So if we put it out to April and we finish in August, that'd be great.
David, I would like to sort of agree. I think you've got a very good foundation here, and what I would sort of recommend is that you do get this to the full board and take a temperature a little bit about how much comment input is out there, get it out to the public, and you'll get a sense of how much interest there is in providing additional comments around it. And then you organize your public meetings around sort of the extent that is necessary. Some people may be very comfortable just submitting comments. They don't need to come to a public hearing. They don't need to, they have a few recommendations or thoughts. But it can be a sort of good way to gauge it. It also, depending on the larger board's reaction, you'll be able to tell a little bit more how much discussion is going to be needed around a lot of this. I think what you've got is a very, what we're working towards here is, I think, a very sound approach. It doesn't feel like drastic change in course, which is usually what drives a lot of public engagement when things are sort of moving in the general direction. But Jim, I sort of understand what you're saying about fighting for more if you need it.
Yeah,
So-
and again, this is not in stone. It's a guide, but in general, I think to extend it out as a vision as opposed to showing this to the public and they'll be saying, oh my gosh, we won't have any time to see it at all. And there may not be no interest. I think one thing that I'd like to see staff do is to come up with some kind of a communication, who are the stakeholders, whether it's the group that was very active in the ADUs or the local, Walnut Beach Association, whatever these different groups are, the Downtown Business Association, all these people, to make sure they're getting touched a couple times with contact and information about here it is. It's on the website, it's on the Facebook page, go look at it. I think we need a robust communication effort to get it out there. And then you may be right. It could be 75% is interested in just sending a note and only 25% of people want to stand up and be heard. But I do think that after all the work that we've done for the last couple of years and all the work you've put in, all the work staff's put in, that it would be a shame to, at the end of the day, to have a good document that people don't like because they don't feel that they were included as groups or as individual stakeholders. So I think that I'd like to make sure that everyone feels included.
So Jim, one
That's a
thing
good
that
point.
it would be worth thinking about here a little bit is that not all of the engagement has to be part of like a big public record meeting. One thing that I've had actually a lot of success with more recently is doing office hours, what I've called office hours, where you set around, a block of time, and people are able to come in and they book a half hour, piece of that time. You sit there, they have an opportunity to talk to you about their thoughts and their ideas, and then you collect that and then present that back publicly to the board. This is what we heard. These were some of the thoughts and ideas they are. But it gives people a little bit more of a opportunity to have a conversation with you. It's not so formal. And it also doesn't, it sort of is more economical use of the board's time because you don't need everybody there to listen to this. You kind of have, it's a kind
Yeah,
of
we
more
did do that with
targeted-
the regulations subcommittee where we had public engagement with just the subcommittee. And
Yeah,
it was on a
and-
Zoom meeting,
And it can be, it doesn't always have to be so, formal. Yeah, so well,
Yeah.
and such like in a hearing format, right, where it's a little bit more informal.
So how would you do that?
I mean, in the past, what I've done is we put out a public notice that, hey, this is out there. If you are interested in talking to, maybe it's David and I, we sit down and we say, hey, we're open to hearing people's talk. And then you put out it's basically like a poll, and people can book time, the same way you would, book time with a doctor, I guess, or something like that. You come in and you show up for your appointment. It's a half hour long. You kind of get to run the meeting, right? They get to talk about whatever it is that they want. We've got copies of the document there for people to use and for us to use. And then, David and I take that input and we put together a summary that we then present at a more public meeting. And that way, you all are getting information, the board's getting information, people have an opportunity to have a conversation. It's particularly valuable for people who are a little bit more intimidated by public speaking, maybe a little bit less comfortable going out and saying, I really don't like this, or I don't understand something. It gives people opportunities to ask questions. And it's a fairly efficient use of time. Typically, we don't need to block out more than, a 4 or 5 hours worth of time, afternoon into the evening, and then if we need it, we can always book more time. I know that
I'm
was a
gonna
little
think
bit.
about that a little bit more. I understand it. I kind of feel like, it's the college professor has the office hours and stuff. And no offense to anyone, but I just don't know that I don't want the committee to hear it as a whole, as opposed to just you guys. You may have different different reactions to the stuff, and what might maybe important to a member of the committee may be less important to you, or vice versa. And so I'm not totally against it. I just have an instinct that I may weigh in, but I'll let, if we'll take that up next meeting, we'll let the board vote on it and see how they feel about the best way. But so if we could we'll take a deeper look at that at our next meeting, and we shall hopefully have something from staff where it is a kind of an outline of what the public outreach will be once we have a draft.
Yeah, and Jim, one thing to think about, that wouldn't exclude like a public hearing on that. It would still allow,
True.
you
No,
can
no,
do
I-
a summary of that and people could still show up and speak publicly if.
Yeah, and I think,
But I get
whatever.
what you're saying.
No, I get that. I think whatever public engagement we have, that's not the full committee, will be remote like this, so people can be in their PJs and feel comfortable without having to get up and stand up in public. So,
And we did that, and Jim's right, we did that well, I think we actually did that for the POCD early on, where there were particular topics, that like the historic district folks and the housing folks and the, I don't remember if we did it for the state folks when they came down for the sustainability, but we build it as, a public input sessions. So it was
Okay.
held at the same time.
yeah, we did it recently with the ADUs.
Yeah, and so it was informal, people could talk, and it was all done on Zoom, and everyone was very well behaved and respectful, and there was a dialogue, and I think we're sort of talking about the same thing, and we have some experience. And so instead of it being the discrete office hours with you and me, I mean, that would probably make Jim feel better because we've done it.
I like that idea too. I mean, I'm very open. I was just, putting ideas out there for consideration, and I'm very comfortable with that, whatever direction you all decide.
Yeah, and it could be a hybrid. It could be a hybrid if we feel that there's, and I don't know that you'd have to come into Milford, but I even think that would be a Zoom. Also, you'd
Yeah.
schedule a Zoom call with someone for 15 minutes,
Yeah.
10 minutes, whatever.
So I'm gonna,
And the key with all of this, though, is I got to get a draft to you all by the end of February, and that is the most important part of all of this. So we will be kind of cranking away at that and be getting you something by then.
and
So
I'm gonna,
what's your instinct? Do you want to meet with us at our next meeting, or do you want to just keep on your path and let us go without you on our next meeting?
I think I have what I need to take a pretty deep dive into this and to start really updating the language based on what I've heard in these two meetings. I think it's time for.
So do you think it's
those
valuable
steps.
to come up with a time in the last week of February to do a pre-draft draft so that we could do a cursory look on it, and if you needed to do a last minute tweak, to have that opportunity before we get a draft?
Yeah, so I think that's
Think about it.
the timing of this.
the other thing I was gonna say, Jim, is
Can I make one? Sorry, yeah, can I make one suggestion on this timeline? I think, Jim, you're highlighting it here.
M has to be moved out, I know.
I'm wondering if M in March, what March should really be is a this subcommittee review of the draft. And that we have a meeting in early, or maybe like middle of March, once you all had a time, like 2 weeks to review the draft. We have a meeting to talk about that, make sure I've got everything right, you can make suggestions, and then we take this to the larger group in April.
I like that.
And then we shoot for whenever your meeting would be in that second or third week, the week of the 13th or the week of the 20th in March.
Okay, that's
So,
good. And then we'll schedule it for either the first or second meeting of April to present it to the board.
Yeah,
so I have a question at this point, and I don't know what your thoughts are, Jim. We're gonna have a report in three weeks, probably 4 weeks. Okay, we just started February, so we'll say 4 weeks.
I was gonna say, give me 4 weeks. I'm going out of town next week, so I need a little bit of time.
Okay, so 4 weeks. So Jim, what would the purpose of having the POCD subcommittee meet between now and getting the report be?
Good
Is
question.
there-
Just to hang out. I don't know. It's fun.
Well, other than hanging out and enjoying each other's company. I mean, 'cause
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to. I mean, I think that if anyone felt like they, having gone through, another read of the last POCD and something comes up, then they can ask for a meeting. But I'm okay with not doing it. And it's up to the other members too, if they feel they want to comment on what we've been through recently or not. I mean, I think it's okay to wait personally, unless everybody wants to revisit anything specific.
Can I just jump in? I'm
Yes,
okay
please.
with waiting, but the one reason I could see having a meeting with just us is maybe come up with a game plan on how we present it. The couple of things you guys mentioned about you guys meeting separate with some key people, then having a Zoom meeting. I still think the public hearing in person would be good. All those, but without Adam doesn't need to be there. At that point, we know what we're doing. I just worry with what's going on these days that the community really feels we're not transparent enough. I hear so much crap about us getting paid off and density is out of control. And I just think the more we engage the community, just listen to what they have to say, let them have a say. So Adam doesn't even need to be there for that. I just think by that point there, we know what's going on, and if there's anything critical, we could feed it back to Adam. But that's why I think we maybe need to come up with a game plan. Maybe you guys don't agree with that, but
No, I like it. I like it. I mean, I think that if we come up with, if staff can come up with a template or an idea of how we're gonna, not necessarily exactly when, but how we're gonna get outreach to the community, and if we have our own ideas on how to get everyone to know, once it goes to draft form, it's gonna be online, people can read it.
right.
Well, I like that idea about the meeting strategizing. I have a couple ideas already. So maybe we should meet and strategize a little bit on how to get this out there.
Okay, cool. Let's do that. Let me get a calendar. So we have the 1st of February. Here we are. So we have, our meeting is Tuesday, the 7th, and Tuesday, the 21st. Do you want to do Wednesday, the 15th?
Good with me.
I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to Florida the 14th, coming back to the 21st. So
You want to, you want to do a Zoom from Florida or no?
I don't know if I'm going to be around. I mean, I'm in Florida. I'm not sure. I wanted. I'm probably out to dinner.
You'll be sitting on the porch playing guitar. You can.
There you go. That's what I want to be doing.
Okay.
I mean, we could try it, but I can't guarantee I'll be
No, how
there.
long are you going to be there?
From the 14th, I leave on the 14th and I come back the 21st. I actually won't be available till the 22nd. So that 21st meeting you mentioned, I won't be around. I'll be flying at that point.
Okay. How about,
We could do with I don't know, I mean, 23rd. What day is the 23rd on? Is that
the
That's a
Thursday?
Thursday.
I mean, I'm open to other nights of the week if you guys want to do something like that. Then again, I don't know. I can't guarantee. Just plan whatever you want. I could try Zoom in. You don't need me there. I think amongst ourselves we should come up with some ideas. I kind of gave you my feel.
Well, you can also send David a lengthy email with your strategy, but I'll go to the 23rd if you want, if that works out for John and Joseph.
Works for me.
I think it might work for me. It's hard for me to think that far ahead.
I'm sure it is.
I think it's for consistency, everyone knows that we do these things on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I mean, I talk about transparency, we start moving stuff around and people don't know where to look.
That's a
So
good
we go to
point.
March 1st?
Well, March 1st.
What's that?
Wednesday.
Tuesday?
Well, no, we'll have a regular planning and zoning board meeting on March 1st.
No, that's a
Oh, no,
Wednesday.
that's right. It's on the 7th. So Wednesday, yeah, I mean, we can do March 1st.
Yeah, as long as that fits in, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We'll have to, Sue will have to cover hopefully, because I'll be on vacation that.
Yeah, so that's fine.
No vacation for you, Meg. Where are you going?
I know, the nerve, I know.
Just don't say you're going to
The-
Florida, that's all.
The good thing about the good thing about March 1st, if that's our next meeting, is I can come up with a strategy. Anyone who's got any ideas about how you want to spread the word, you can give that to me. I can also chat with Adam, because Wednesday, that the first could be a marvelous twofer. We could have in our hands the report, and we'll have the strategy that we could talk about for getting it to everyone to look at. So.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that. And Meg, you can call in from your vacation.
That's what you wanted to hear.
That's it, sure.
And get paid for it.
I live to serve.
Okay, so
If we could, I guess next order of business is approval of the minutes. I don't see the agenda. I didn't print it.
okay, hold on. Oop, hold on.
I've seen it.
Is March 1st okay with you, Joe?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
John,
I second.
so approved.
Good,
Anything else?
good.
Thank you all very much. This was great.
Adam, thank you for your
Thank you.
work. Nice job.
Yep, thank
Have a
you,
good one.
Adam.
Yep, thank you.
Thank
And
you,
then-
everybody.
Thank you, everyone, and I'll see this committee as the committee on March 1st, and then I'll see everyone, I think it's next week, for our first meeting of February.
Wow.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night,
Take care,
everyone.
everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Take care now.
See ya.